Hello, hello. Ignore the that's ingrown hair, and I just picked at it too much. Um, yeah, sorry, I'm human. Um, today I today's the first. Oh, it's technically the second. Whatever. My days are all mixed up. It's not mixed up. They bleed. And I sleep like from the I sleep in the overnight period. My night bleeds into most people's days. A little bit. Anyways, it's like what 1 a.m. I'm still gonna call it the first. I don't care. It's the first somewhere, right? Instead of it's 5 o'clock somewhere, it's the first somewhere. In case you don't know who I am Aaron Klein. Um, so this is I have some really radical theology and life updates. I think I'm going to start a post-church movement of Christianity. That sounds radical, right? And what do I mean by that? I think the organization we call church is was and is destined to fail at a base level, no matter what. And actually, I wouldn't say fail. It succeeds exactly what it does. It provides order for those who are incapable of building their own order. And I don't, how do I put this? I think like how engineers can build a house, can design a house from scratch. There are certain principles that underlie that. There's certain mathematics that have to be there. Um, there are certain purposes for certain rooms. You have to include everything, and engineers know that. But and then they use that to their advantage, and they can start to get creative, and then they can make houses. They can make giant corporate buildings, yada yada yada. With that being said, I think that a post-church Christianity is the way forward. I think that engineers asleep at the wheel who just walk in for a paycheck, those are normal engineers. They don't change the world. I think the radical engineers make great work. The radical ones tend to get paid really well by the companies that employ them. It's that simple. Elon Musk isn't an engineer, but he employs the best engineers because money moves things. By the way, I do not like Elon Musk, but I'm using him as a point for reference. And actually, there's a really important claim that I'm going to make. The church is for the masses of people who, sorry, I need to ignore that. The church is, this is going to sound heretical, but that's fine. That's fine. Technically, it is a heresy. And if you think heresy is bad, fine. But that's just life. Technically, each Christian who's not a member of the Eastern Orthodox Church or the Roman Catholic Church or wherever you draw the line is what the mainline church is. What the mainstream is a heretic, technically. But that's okay. Once you come to the conclusion that I have had, that's okay. I'm going to draw a little picture. Normally, scientists don't agree on what is true. Normally, like what happens is a lot of people run a whole bunch of models as hypotheses, and then the best one that arises tends to be the one that people cling on to. It's not evolutionary. A lot of them work, but to a point, and then the best one, when the predation of scrutiny comes along, the one that holds the best is the one that's best tested, is the one that mainstream science tends to cling to. The pursuit of truth usually follows more of a ecological practice. That um, there are multiple things that fill into a niche, and then whenever disaster strikes, only the best suited ones can survive in that niche, and you diversify or you become extinct. This is roughly how religion works. Religion is like an operating system. It is like an organism within an organism. The human mind it is in one way a predictive model of reality, but in another way it flattens, it compresses reality. But in order to do all that, you need an operating system. An operating system. That's the easiest way to explain it. You need an organizing frame of reference built on the stories that you have accumulated to lay onto the world. So you need it's like a living operating library. So the idea actually comes from, I don't know where I got the idea, but in general, whenever you're pursuing truth, this is how scientists actually have to treat it. In the pursuit of truth, you'll stumble across a whole bunch of facts that just arise from the process of it's like hunting or scouting or it's the same circuitry as a hunter. You go out and you sprawl and you collect what you can and you bring it back. And after your experience, like, you know what to kick out and what to leave and you know, like, these are the threats while you're out there. And that takes a lot of experience. So a truth seeker is someone who's a hunter or a hero out looking for treasure. When you don't know anything, you're not going to go very far. You're going to try to look for what's available around you, make sure it doesn't kill you, look for the biggest resources. But as you get more experienced, you start to understand the value of things. You start to organize better. You start to limit things that you shouldn't look for. And in fact, this is how your brain works anyways. But as you're doing that, you use that same process in truth, and you start to build pathways in which you approach to get there. And the best hunter wins, right? The highest ranking people in a society tend to be those who produce the most from their narratives and patterns. So the best heroes, I'm using a lot of metaphor here, and I'm sorry. But I'm actually using language like you're going to know, but it's kind of vague, and that's not entirely intentional. But I'm working on the book. I promise you. I've now collapsed 3 books into 2. And I'll eventually, the one that I collapse, I'll eventually expand upon. But I'm putting like the first chapter of that one book directly into, not even the first chapter, like the first like 5,000 words directly into my sequel. Anyways, barring all the language that I'm gonna have to like spell out, because words symbolize things, and when you live in a hyper reality, you kind of forget that. Use the words, you just expect the word to be there, and you treat the word as though it's the actual thing. So I'm sorry about that. Where was I going with that? Oh yeah, just the greatest huntsman, the greatest truth seeker. The method he used is the one that's going to be incorporated, and the method he used is derived from when he went looking, how he went looking, why he went looking, the the how do I put this? I know the words, I just haven't used them in a while, especially out loud. I'll come back to the words in a few seconds. No, they're right on the tip of my tongue. The rewards drive the method. It's not the rewards, but it's close enough. Oh, the incentives. There we go. The incentives derive. The incentives, yeah, the incentives are a compelling star for you to derive a narrative and process to attain. So because of that, oh shoot, where was I going with this? Oh yeah. Anyways, my idea is that actually, religion, religion, it has to be, the idea of a unifying religion doesn't work. A unifying God, yes. It's like an ultimate, whatever that word was again. You can have a unifying God and multiple people worship it, but you can't have a unifying religion because that compels control. Like the entire religion has to be built to control people. It has to be built to quiet your mind and to be receptive and do the will of those who have set themselves up as higher than you. And it allows you to do this. You know what? I'm going to take a step back before I'm going to say what I'm about to say and say that your brain seeks to do the least amount of work possible to get results. So, when you are in a narrator receptive mode, you are receiving instruction that gets you the results without you having to do all the work. So, a religion, specifically right now Christianity is a system where a congregation of people have, I wouldn't say elected, especially in the older versions of the tradition, Orthodox and Catholicism, they are top-down, elite, appointed teachers in a similar way to how your children are being taught by people you did not elect. You are forced to send them there for multiple hours a day to be receptive. Oh, 1 second. Sorry, the lighting was from my computer. It's very pretty, the background there. Church is actually just school for adults, and vice versa. School is just church for kids. And when you bring children to church, you are teaching them that this is where you go to after you leave your 5 days a week life to 5+1. This is now your obligation to attend to go get indoctrinated within. That's not pursuit of truth. That is telling people this is where you go to receive the truth. And why is this bad? I'm actually going to paint a very different picture here. And I'm going to start with Plato's Republic. The original idea is that a couple of prisoners are kept down in a cave. They are chained to a wall, and they are made to watch shadows from a fire for a couple hours a day, and they think that is the entire world. And then one of them gets to escape and climb out and see that not only are the shadows made by a fire and by by like figures. It's just shadows. But he can go out farther and see the real world and look down from above. And then when he comes back, he tries to explain to the people and they don't see it. So like that's like the main underlying idea, that there is a real world to be discovered, and only those who can discover it have the capability to rule, and they have to rule on behalf of those who can't see. First things first. That's actually, if you didn't understand it, that is actually the direct line to a control-based hierarchy, where you say that your fellow human beings are too stupid to lead themselves. First of all, that is pretty evil. Second of all, it is about 50% right. A lot of humans are too lazy and or too busy to realize that there are people around them who have positioned themselves to have higher authority and power over them, who do not have their best interests at heart. And this is the world we live in, actually. And this isn't and what, how do I put this? This is like really hard to deny nowadays. In like the last 15 years, it's been really obvious that there are people pulling the strings behind the world, and they're kind of evil. And it's really hard. Like the first couple of people who saw it tried to yell and scream, and no one listened. So I'm going to just start joining them, and it's slowly increasing. And the issue is like most of the damage was done. What is it now, year-wise? Over 100 years ago. Probably a few hundred. So to explain some things, you don't have to agree with me, but I think in theory the Catholic Church, I don't think Rome actually died. I think it preserved itself within Christianity underneath the guise of the Catholic Church. And it was the Protestants that left, that said, screw this, we actually translated the Bible, and the things you're preaching aren't even from your own translated text, so we're taking your text and we're running. Actually, they were kicked out, and then they fled the country. Surprise, surprise. But it goes to show that how do I put this? There, for a very long time, people who only had their own best interests at heart had controlled the narrative and had hidden their text from us. Like, I don't think people understand this, but the Bible, it's been around for what? We're going to say about 1,700 years, give or take. The Bible in its completion right now, we're going to say 1,700 to 1,500 years, depending upon the translation. It didn't reach the public until within the last, like, 20% of that. Like, just to put things into perspective, the printing press crippled the grasp of the Catholic Church on a lot of its people. It no longer had power over those who didn't want it to have power over them. So they took the word of God and they fled. I think that actually hurts a lot of religions, because there's actually secret societies that run things. The Catholic Church clearly has multiple secret societies that you can be in, and they indoctrinate the priests that go and lead the people that they are overseeing. And there is no room for the public to have good faith debates with their priests unless they want to get excommunicated. Now, if you're outside the church, it's really like they don't have any real power over you, which is really helpful if you're trying to seek the truth. That if you are within the church, there's a whole bunch of power, social power, that they exert over you because that's your family and your community. Now, why am I saying what I'm saying? I plan to pursue a tradition that I want to strip off as much of the ritualism and authority from any sort of leadership from a church I am going to start. The goals are here. First goal, we're going to make sure that everyone to enter into the good faith agreement that we are going to pursue the truth. We are going to partake in the Lord's Supper. So that way we can... I had the wording right earlier. So that way we can take on the living sacrifice and the physical sacrifice of Jesus. To understand that our suffering is for something, that God had to suffer as an atonement for our sin. He couldn't take it away. He couldn't take away the consequences, but he could suffer it for us on our behalf. And that because of this, we should be eagerly seeking the truth. Because I actually don't, and this is something I'm going to teach when I'm doing it, I want to have a good faith argument with people in general about this. The original name that God gave his people were Israelites, those who wrestled with him, those who wrestled with the truth. That is completely in conflict with any organized religion, with any organized version of Christianity currently. Because technically the church is supposed to be a group of people that all share the same belief system, and that's not what happens. Actually, a lot of people go and place their membership with a church when they have very little agreement on what the church believes. Now, if you're Orthodox or Catholic, that doesn't quite work. You're forced to recite a whole bunch of stuff during your services. As a Catholic, I think you probably do as an Eastern Orthodox, but I actually attended a Catholic Mass, so I know you recite a whole bunch. You respond and participate in the ritual of the Mass from start to finish. Now, I did all the standing and sitting with them, and I sang one or two songs with them. I didn't bow in prayer. I was able to, I did enjoy being able to shut down my mind and listen to what they had to say. But, now I'll just say this, it was beautiful. But at the same time, it was completely top down. As above, so below, so to say. And that was a little scary after the fact. While I was there, it felt nice to be able to shut off my rhetoric, my internal dialogue with reality. And I say dialogue because it's no longer just a monologue. And I mean that in a weird way. Like, there is a silent part of me that consistently speaks into me that I have to dialogue with. It tells me, stop here, that's wrong for these reasons. And I like it I'm allowed to find the idea and then dialogue with it. I know it's weird to say, and I don't mean, how do I put this? I don't know how to put this right now, but um, it was nice enough that I could turn that off. Now, I did not commune with them. I did not take communion with them, which I wouldn't do anyways. Um, but I want to create a church that the only things we have, one, everyone takes communion, um, and then, I'd like to create a system that people can use to break off from there, to have an organized version of conversation. Now, I'd like to tell them, hey, you don't have to use this, but this is what I'm probably going to do is use Paul Vanderklay's um, estuary protocol. I'm going to put that as one of the protocols that people can use when they go into conversation, when they're in big groups. Not big groups, but like 5, 6, 7. There's going to be times when I bring in when it's just going to be, like, when we're starting, it's just probably going to be Elliot and I'm probably going to invite a few people. I think I have a few ideas. Elliot's one of my friends. You don't know who Elliot is, that's fine. That's cool. But he kind of, like, inspired me to do this. To have this idea. Like, I think we were both, like, pushing each other back and forth. There's dialogue happening in our subconscious with each other's ideas, which is where, like, this worked out in my head. I think we're both coming to the same ideas from the opposite direction, which is cool. Because he grew up in a very the first, like, 10 years of his life were in abject poverty, and he was very rebellious when I met him. Now, I was too, but I was in a mine was from within a hierarchy. He was from, I'm gonna get myself kicked out of a hierarchy as quickly as possible, and mock it. And I was I'm gonna play in it and completely disrupt it and undermine it. You think you have authority over me, and then I'll say yes, and then I'll just go off and forget, or intentionally disobey. Sometimes it's not intentional. But I grew up in an environment where it served my best interests to not obey people with authority. And that started early. That probably started when I was 6. And this isn't like disobeying God. This isn't like sinning. This is like, why do you have authority over me? I don't care. You don't know my life. You don't know that what you're teaching me is actually important to me. I actually don't think what you're teaching is important to me. So I'm just not gonna go do it. And then my grades actually suffered in all school because I just didn't do stuff that I was told to. That's okay though. That's okay. I think the rebellious spirit against unauthorized authority, like people who have authority over you who really have no business having authority over you, is I think that's a fine spirit to have, especially when, like, you're pursuing things greater than they could lead you to, and they just have authority over you because of circumstance, and they're not good at it. If you put worldly authority, like if you put authority on the world, be careful lest the people who have it are incompetent of using it and of convincing you that they should be in charge. Because there's actually an art to convincing someone that you should be in charge and doing the things correctly. People will reward you if you should be in charge and you are doing the in charge thing correctly. If you're a competent leader and you're competent at leadership. And I know that's two very separate things. Um, and actually, one of them is why I was cool with being in hierarchy. I don't think I understood this, 20 years ago, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. But I'm actually competent. I'm competent at leadership, and it's like genetic. I don't know where it came from, but I'm actually really good at being able to organize people to get things done. And no one tells you how to do it. It's something that is just inbuilt into some people. Um, so like I'm in this cool situation right now in my job where I see both. I have both, and I see people who have one or the other, and it's really interesting. And some people just it snaps in to place. Some people weasel their way into positions of authority. Um, anyways, my goal is to build a post-church Christian community that is seeking the truth. I think some of the way this works. I think I figured out the correct wording of this finally, and like I've used this wording before in other ways. So you can imagine that all human this is an easy way to put this. All human sin. We are material. We've been blessed and cursed with our materiality. We exist here for a time. And in so doing, we have agency. Some of that agency, we have some limitations on that. First one is our material bodies have a library called a genome. We only have so many proteins we can code. Our code can only fold so many different ways. In fact, there are some ways that it should load, that should fold. There's a massive sea of probability, of possibility that collapses to a massive sea of probability that collapses again into a regular expected. You can expect a spectrum of responses on this massive library. You can collapse it way down like 2 or 3 levels to this is how it functions at these stages of life. These proteins are active in these cells during this time of that cell's life cycle and of the major organism's life cycle. There's a rapid collapse that you can actually investigate, and you can investigate how it collapses. But in that same way, humans also sin, but certain humans also sin in different ways. In the pursuit of truth, we are limited creatures that have limited faculties, and we can all go and hit the same wall, and we know it's solid. There's 100 out of 100 people are going to say it's solid. Actually, about two of them might. There's a tail end. The two that might say otherwise are tricksters. They're psychopaths, tricksters, something like that. But not even then, it's a might. Something like 0.01% of people might say that wall isn't real. But in the pursuit of truth, one second, my lighting. In that pursuit of truth, because we are imperfect creatures, while we are searching out to understand the world and to understand God, sometimes we make mistakes. 2, sometimes we can't capture enough information. 3, sometimes because we're humans, we interpret it wrong. Or 4, there's more information that we didn't capture that would change our interpretation, and once we re-examine it, might change our interpretation. And 5, this is the crazy one. The act of perception changes and flattens the result. That sea of possibility, that the act of perception, the act of application, actually compresses the results to from a sea of possibilities to an actual event happening. This is the way electrons function, actually. They exist within a field, and they can be anywhere in the positionality of that. Like there's a spectrum of positions they can be within. There's a band that they're probably within, but you don't know exactly where it is until you observe it. And in fact, like, even just observing it changes that location. Like how do I put this? Just in general, physicists have identified the act of observation changing and organizing reality. So actually, there's a small part of reality that you don't know is true unless you observe it. And different observers can observe different things because they observe it at different times and from different perspectives, and their organizing principles, the organizing libraries, tell them that to understand it in a slightly different way. And some of that is literally just when they are asked to recall a certain shade of a color that they see, sometimes there's going to be actually a small band in the human perception there. Like if you tell someone, here, shampoo. Boop. That's blue. If you ask someone to recall that blue, if you ask 1 million people to recall that blue, there's going to be there's going to be a spectrum with a high intensity around a certain point that's going to be the correct color, but there's going to be a bell curve of people giving colors, and there's going to be a higher intensity around the correct point, but that's like the observer's that's like the difficulty of being an observer, right? Like if your memory is poor, or if you just in general, human memory isn't perfect. Part of seeking the truth is that everyone's going to have a model. We are modelers, and some people are really good at modeling. My brain's really good at modeling, but it takes me a while. Like, it can get a really accurate model of how the human functions, and what God is, and how he functions, to get accurate descriptions. But different people have different levels of modeling. And like the reason why I bring that, sort of the reason why I'm pretty sure my brain's actually really good at modeling, is because like I'm really good, like it's not just 3D modeling. I used to study engineering. I could do 3D modeling all day. It was fun. I miss it, but that's beside the point. My brain's really good at modeling, and I've learned that not everyone is. And even though, and some of that is literally just like, I'm going to disagree with you on the model too. Like, humans all have to model their own reality. And some people are better at modeling than others. So you're actually going to get the same kind of distribution around the truth. And in fact, sometimes there's not enough information, so it's going to look like a flat line. Everyone's going to have different opinions. And the idea of the Catholic Church is to eliminate the tail ends, and then, like, when you see a bell curve, it's going to look something like this, right? Not like a trumpet, not entirely like a trumpet. There's a curve on the top usually. If it looks like a trumpet, that's really awkward. It's going to look more like a bell. The idea of a centralizing religion is to eliminate the tail ends and squeeze as much people into a fine point, and position yourself from the top, way up top, as the organizing structure that tells the people what to believe. And this gets really funny around ideas that are hyper complex, that people are actually going to have differing opinions on. So, like, for example, the Trinity within Christianity, that sounds ludicrous to a lot of people. who aren't Christians. Um, and I say you, um, people who aren't Christians who disagree with the Trinity don't understand human psychology enough. Carl Jung is right. He described a Trinitarian version of the human psyche. I think it's a little bit off, but it's really close. And the reason why I think it's a little bit off is because the shadow isn't the shadow. It is the in the way that God has a spirit that's like a hero that we all, yeah, that's actually the best way to put it. There's a three in the in the God consciousness Trinity. The consciousness of God has three pieces. The Father, he's like the sage, the writer, the one with wisdom that tries to teach his son. There's the Father. There's the Spirit there, which is sort of like the model. It's modeled after like a hero that it descends into the darkness of your soul to find the little grains of gold in the vat of chaos. It gets into alchemical ideas, but actually alchemy should be considered soul work. And people who try to use it on reality are evil. Because you get into the ideas, like, it's okay to work on yourself. It's wrong to control other people to do what you say is correct and you use alchemy to do it. Because you actually have to, like, people can't actually battle with ideas that big, especially when you just kick them out. When you kick out someone who has differing ideas on reality than you, especially when you're using alchemy to try to change their mind, you become a villain. Because not only are you controlling those who can't think for themselves yet because they're not trained, but two, you silence those who could lead them astray, and you also remove the the ability to fight with God. You actually eliminate people's ability to have differing opinions and to like have those meet reality. It's hard to explain. Like the church, I understand the church's desire to eliminate people who are just absolutely nuts, who say Jesus isn't God, or even to say that Jesus is an absolute liar. That one I can completely understand. There are some people that are just so far out that like when they come in and they approach the masses and they start spreading horrendous blasphemies, it gets a little weird. Like you kind of have to kick those people out. Like this is the purpose of this place. But at the same time, like they also like kind of kick themselves out if they start saying things that are way too off. But it's good. It is a good idea to start to give the opportunity for people to have discussion. This went way off on a tangent. I was discussing like how the pursuit of truth tends to be. There is one truth, just not everyone has it. It is a search. It is a battle. It is because we're all flawed. We just don't have all the information. And in so doing, when you try to compel people to hold to one narrative, and you start kicking people out who disagree, you become the villain. Control homogeneous control brings forth stagnation in the fall of the tower that you've built. Um, there's a nice little dialogue to be had here between Noah and the flood and the Tower of Babel. And I think you actually want to lean more towards Noah. The truth shall set you free. Your belief in God the pursuit of the truth shall set you free. And in doing so, you have to be willing to disagree. And if the church doesn't allow people to disagree, the church is by definition a tyrant, and it rules by fear instead of with authority and power. I wouldn't even say authority and power. It rules with fear. I think authority is the right word, but I think the church uses. There's two different words that are being conflated here because they use the same word, but they have two different meanings. My meaning of authority is in the same way, the competence of leadership, right there, right? Those who are competent leaders tend to have a different kind of authority than those who are fluent speakers of a particular cluster of language. So, and you can be good at both, but the fluent speaker of a particular cluster of language has a different authority, and that kind of authority is top down. It's how I put this. That is the Luciferian intellect trying to steal your power away from you. It's given you a hard task to beat in wrestling away from its intellect. But oftentimes this boils down to the brothers Karamazov disagreement between Alyosha and Ivan, right? Even if you have the perfect argument, when you live it out, there's a very different reality. Let's just say that life is more beautiful than mere reason. And actually, mere reason leads you down horrible paths. Unlived wisdom that isn't derived from experience in the world, that's derived from logic, tends to be really demonic and hurts a whole lot of people. But you see where I'm getting at, right? Like, the goal of a church that seeks to eliminate discerning truth seekers from the congregation is one that seeks to lull people into a receptive state where they are accepting someone else's worldview. And that is not okay because, how do I put this? This is the easiest way to put it. Those who seek to impose their worldview on you, no matter what, should be regarded as someone who's trying to control you. Now, if they're trying to control you for good, that gets you into really sketchy moral questions. So, and the only way, like, how can you control someone for good and it not be evil? I can actually explain this in one very simple way. And this is actually something that I've had to endure. It sucks to do. So, as a leader, sometimes you see people who are out to do as little as possible to get their paycheck. And they are being a hindrance on the work you are trying to accomplish. If you do not have the ability to fire them, which sometimes you do not, like how a Catholic priest doesn't have the ability to fire one of his, like if someone managed to weasel their way up the hierarchy. I'm gonna use the Catholic priesthood because it's a really good way to explain this. It's a good way to demonstrate how someone cannot be fired by their direct supervisor. The reason why I'm using this is because like I work for a unionized store. I don't have a whole lot of authority. A manager has to do the firing. There has to be a whole bunch of paperwork and stuff like that. If you do not have the ability to fire someone, you have to find something to do and send them away from what needs to get done, because there are people who are on your payroll that you have charge over that you can't fire in some situations. This is the issue with hyper. I shouldn't say hyper. With a bloated bureaucratic hierarchy. Yeah, that's the right wording. I knew I was going to get it out. A bloated bureaucratic hierarchy. Oftentimes, it takes too long to get people out of the positions you need them out of. I have these people on my staff. One of them should have been fired 10 years ago. Literally 10 years ago. Has he worked here that long? I think so. Yeah, I think he's worked for Kroger for 10 years. Anyways, he should have been pretty quickly eliminated. He does unproductive work. What I mean by this is he will go and do work that directly goes against his job. I'm not going to say what his name is. But there are other people that come in and distract people from the work they need to be doing. Some of my own people, I have to send them away to do other things. That way my productive people will not be pulled down. Where was I going with this? It is okay to manipulate these people. They are out to deceive you. They are out to steal not only your time from their labor, but your time from other people's labor. They are an active cancer on a bone. And there's not a whole... They're taking up valuable space on that bone where muscle could be grafted on. You have to remove them from the situation. You have to cut off the blood supply. You have to eliminate as much surface area that cancer has access to the good muscle. That's like the easiest way to explain it. This is an issue in large bureaucratic systems, but this is also the easiest way to actually handle this is to eliminate the bureaucracy. Now, some of the issue is I work in a unionized store, so I don't have the ability to go to I do. I have the ability to go to my bosses and be like, hey, these people are causing me issues. I don't have the time to write them up myself. My write-ups will not scare them anyways because they go in their file and they do nothing. There's no consequences for what I do to them because we work in a unionized store. I need you to watch the cameras and watch them interact. I need you to watch where they go. I should not have to babysit these people. I do not have the time or the energy to do this. I have more important things to do, and they are slowing me down drastically. If you can't watch the cameras, can you come up at some point and watch these people interact? It is hard for my bosses to come up and watch because they're busy doing other stuff around the store. Usually when I work, there is one manager around that is in charge for most of the store. Because most managers leave by 5 or 6. I'm getting there at 3 and I'm working till 11:30. That means the majority of my shift is one manager not sitting around. They're running around. They have to worry about trucks. They have to worry about trash time. They have to worry about making sure produce is keeping up on their issues. They have to handle issues around the store, which is growing worse because we keep hiring fucking minors. I'm sorry for the language, but we keep hiring minors. You know, the little guys with hard hats and pickaxes? Those guys. That's where I want to send them. All that is to say, bloated bureaucracies. This is what happens. Where was I going with this? This kind of stuff can't happen in a low to the ground community. The issues that the Catholic Church has is part of the nature of their organization. And the organization is already bad. If you're wondering how America's going to fall, it's through this cancer that is growing. And it was brought over by the Roman Empire. Through the Catholic Church. We allowed Rome to stay buried. The cancer of Rome, what killed Rome, came over here when we started. I don't hate Catholic people. I don't even hate the Catholic elites so much. No, I sort of do, actually. I do. I'm going to take that back. I hate the Catholic elites. The cancer of Rome, when we got transplanted into America, when we started allowing Catholics in. By the way, the same goes to the Eastern Orthodox. Yeah. By the way, this is mirrored. So if you see my tattoo, boop. My tattoo is I think it is the sort of revolution. It is a sort of revolution, an Eastern version of it, well, Western version of it. It's not Marxist. I don't know what to call any of my movements. Like, I don't even know. There's a whole bunch I do not know. I'm not good at naming things. Not yet. Because I don't name things. It took me 6 years to name my book correctly. Because the first iteration of it was, I had to kill my book at one point completely 6 years ago. Yes. Starting soon to be 7. I had to completely scratch it and just start over. I remember the first freaking paragraph is now what used to be the first paragraph exploded into the entire first chapter of the book. Literally, the entire first chapter of the book was one paragraph at one point. That was after I did the entire scorched earth, burn it to the ground approach. One little seed. That's what I want to do. One little seed right now. And hopefully in 30 years, the world will have changed. One little seed. Eliminate the church.